Coaster launches are, in my opinion, some of the most underappreciated things on rides. They're probably my favorite thing on coasters, either those or airtime. And I know usually people love airtime tenfold over launches, but to me, they're actually pretty close. There's just something so special about a good launch. A good launch is always the standout moment of the ride, no matter how good the rest of the ride is. Maverick is a ride with a crazy drop, some barbaric stangle dives, an insane ejector hill, and some super snappy twists, and yet the pretty average launch in a tunnel is still in the runnings for the best moment on the ride. To me, a launch is a game changer for a coaster. It's something to look forward to or to kick it off with a bang. Some of the most iconic coasters out there are really only great because of the launch. Dragster's launch is the only thing people talk about when talking about Dragster. Superman Escape from Krypton would basically just be a drop tower without its launch, and Lightning Rod without a launch is just basically Outlaw Run 2.0. And parks know that. Launches are great, and that's why they always hype it up. One of my favorite things is when parks make launches almost cinematic to heighten the anticipation. Dragster is a great example of this, of course. I love how Cedar Point puts freaking bleachers to watch the ride. Like, come on, man, that's genius. The stoplights are also a nice touch. Every time I rode Dragster, I would be watching the stoplights like a hawk, and as soon as I started to see them go off, I would be like, oh shit. The motors revving are also a great detail, and when you're sitting on that launch track, if you listen carefully when you launch, you'll hear the squeaking of tires in the background. Overall, this is just an incredible way of building anticipation for the launch and the textbook example that everyone knows of. But one that people don't really talk about is the one on Slinky Dog Dash of all coasters. I know, it's a bit of an odd one, but yeah, I got no excuse for this. This is a strange choice. But it is a good build-up, even if it isn't a great launch. You start by crossing under this bridge that people in the queue are standing on, that they can see you underneath them. You then come up to an almost complete stop, and there are these spinny fire things next to you. I'm not really sure what these are supposed to be, but they're definitely a cool way of building up anticipation, as they start slow and then speed up as you're about to launch. You also have these circular things that you go through. The whole ride is supposed to be like a playset, and all these set pieces that you're diving through and around are supposed to look like toys, so even though I don't really know what they are, they still are pretty cool looking. And then finally you launch, and well, you know. But it's not about that. It's about the buildup. It's about the anticipation. So Slinky knocks that part out of the park. Another great buildup is Hulk at Islands of Adventure. This is an incline tower launch, and let me just say, the tunnel gives this such a high energy that no other launch can really match, because you know you're about to launch. Like, everyone in that tunnel knows they're about to launch, so there's so much nervous energy going around. It really is just great. Hearing the science lady while slowly climbing that lift hill always makes my heart pound out of my chest, and just like Dragster, this launch does have kind of a sign that you're about to launch, but it's only for a split second before you blast off. The tunnel lights around you start off as these kind of pulsing circles, but as soon as you're about to launch, they turn into these green wavy things, and you know you're in for a treat. And then the final touch that makes this such a perfect build-up and launch is that Hulk roars at you as you fly out of the tunnel into that zero-G world. But obviously the build-up to the launch isn't the only good thing about it. No, of course, the launch itself has to be good. Obviously. Now, there are many ways of doing this, but one major one is just power. A powerful launch is a really great way to kick it off. Most of the best launches are really only the best because of their sheer strength. Hydraulic launches are the most powerful I've experienced. Both Dragster and King Ka have a great first kick, and the acceleration down the launch track is incredible. The launch track is also just huge. Like, look at how long King Ka's track is. You're launching for a solid 5 seconds at over 120 miles an hour. And while I clearly haven't been to space, I can confidently say that this is what takeoff probably feels like. Probably not confidently, but you know, trust me, when you get on this ride, you'll know what I mean. The S&S air launches are also supposed to be incredible. These might not be as fast as the hydraulic launches, but they certainly do it in a faster time frame. I mean, look at Dododompa's launch. God damn! You look like a bullet being shot out of a gun. It's an acceleration of 0 to 112 miles per hour in 1.6 seconds. That is faster than most race cars. Then you have max force, which is 0 to 78 in only 2 seconds, but it's still the fastest in North America. S&S knows how to do these high acceleration launches, and I'm so excited to see more of them, but this is where it gets interesting. I mean, I hope the rest of this video has been interesting thus far, but, you know, interesting in terms of launches. When a launch coaster doesn't have a super fast acceleration, it's forced to be more creative. We already talked about the spectacle of Dragster, Hulk, and Slinky Dog Dash. This is a good way to make the launch exciting. Another good example of this is Maverick's Tunnel, when you come to an almost complete stop and the lights dim, then all of a sudden the lights start flashing, you hear the train station, and then you get blasted away. But there are other great launches out there that are not just great because of the power or spectacle, but because of creativity. A great way of doing this is putting it on an incline. I feel like I keep coming back to the same coasters, but the Hulk's launch feels so much stronger because it's on an incline. Without an incline, this would be a pretty average launch, but with the incline, it honestly makes this one of the most intense elements I've ever felt. Lightning Rod also does this, and so does Maverick, but I haven't heard great things about Lightning Rods, and Maverick's is kind of forceless, but whatever, I still like Hulk's. And then there are launches that take this to a whole nother level, like Wicked at Lagoon. It launches you straight up over the top at like that Russia coaster memes that you use. Considering Hulk is one of the strongest launches out there because of its angle and the fact that going up top the dragster in King Ka is already as intense as it is, I can't even imagine being accelerated on a launch at 90 degrees. That would really feel like being blasted off into space. Another way of spicing up a launch is making it a rolling launch. Intamin does this sometimes with their Blitz coasters, but we've seen Premier do it with Icebreaker and, you know, their Skyrocket 2s. Cheat Hunt's launch in the alley isn't coming in with a lot of speed, but that speed is so much more intense because you roll into it. Like, it's just cool that you're already moving and you kind of just slide into that launch. You slide into those DMs. They're also really cool because for one reason or another, Intamin likes to do these with tunnels. Cheetah Hunt has that narrow alleyway, but Velocicoaster literally has a tunnel, and Terran has this. I don't really know what this is, but it kind of looks like lower in the ground. I don't know, man. Terran's kind of weird. But I mean, look at this. You're already cruising on Terran, and then you put that pedal to the freaking metal with this rolling launch. You go from Lightning McQueen speed to light speed. And then there are backwards launches, like I mentioned before. These are pretty cool, but I think they're more of a novelty than actually intense, except the Mr. Freeze clothes, of course. I mean, it's a cool gimmick to tie in with theming like on Fire Chaser Express, or a unique way of extending ride time with the Intamin switch tracks, or a surprise in the middle of the layout like on Mummy, but they never really look as intense as just a normal, like, straight, super powerful launch. But whatever, they're kind of cool. But aside from the type of launch, I think the placement on the ride of the launch itself is also very important. There are two main spots, the beginning and the middle. No, they don't put launches at the end. That would be stupid. A lot of launches at the beginning are the only launch on the ride. Rarely will you have a solo launch in the middle. These strong starter launches include the S&S Air launch, the Intamin Hydraulic launch, and the two B&M's launches, and the one RMC launch. Completely unrelated, but don't you think it's kind of crazy that out of the big three manufacturers, the only one that consistently does launches is Intamin? And funny enough, RMC's most unreliable coaster is Lightning Rod, and Intamin's most unreliable would be, well, just pick your launch coaster. Anyways, if there's multiple launches in the coaster, then the first will probably be a weaker one, while the second will be the stronger one. This is shown in Abyssus, Maverick, Velocicoaster, etc., etc. It's really just the main rule of thumb for any multi-launch coaster. Now, sometimes there will be 3 launches on a coaster, like the Skyrocket 2s or Cheetah Hunt. Then there's Hagrid's with friggin' 7. I love when you get punched by the first one and then go through the layout and get to the second one, only to realize that that first one, that was just a warm-up. This is the real deal. All right, I'm getting to the end of the video, so I'm gonna go through my 5 favorite launches, and then we're gonna get out of here. This is a really good launch guide. After a pretty lackluster launch out of the station, this rolling launch really feels like a cheetah running. The narrow walls around you make you feel like you're going so much faster than you are, and one nice touch I really like is how you start underground and the launch is almost at a slope before cresting into that figure 8. I mean, you don't really feel the incline, but it's just a cool thing that I noticed while riding. This makes it so that you go from darkness into blinding light, and the fact that everyone can see through the gates makes it so much better. This is the best launch on the ride, but not the best Intamin Blitz launch I've experienced. That's a little higher. If you want a launch that gives a good punch in the face, then this is for you. It's not even a kick. This launch is a straight up gut punch. It's honestly one of the strongest initial bursts on any coaster I've experienced, and for sure the highlight of the ride. Combine that with the fact that you're indoors with the Aerosmith in your ears and the alleyway theming and the people watching you from the queue, and it all culminates in this amazing experience. Easily the best moment on any Disney coaster I've been on, excluding Space Mountain because I haven't been on that. One day. This launch is all about the tunnel. Being in darkness and then hitting that launch before slamming back out into the light is a jarring experience unlike anything you've been on. And if you go on this at night, oh boy, you're in for a treat. After you get past those train light thingies, you are actually in complete pitch black and you go full speed into the darkness. And the launch itself is really strong. It pins you to the back of your seat with such force it almost feels dangerous, especially with that snap at the end. Overall, this is a personal favorite of mine and definitely one of the best launches I've experienced, but not as good as... The only reason this is this high is because of its sheer strength. This is one of the most powerful launches I've experienced, and it's not even close. These top 2 spots really blow every launch out of the water in terms of raw horsepower, and this is no exception. Out of all the inversions, the steepest drop in the world, and the strong twisted airtime moments, this launch is the highlight of TMNT Shellraiser. And the fact that it's a rolling launch makes it so much better because you really don't know when it's going to kick in, and then you just get blasted. There's not really a whole lot to say about it because it's not like a big spectacle, it's not anything super creative, it is just sheer strength, but not quite as powerful as the #1 spot. I can't really put these in two different spots, because while most people would like you to believe that Dragster is vastly superior, I'm here to say that it's not. Honestly, the only reason I prefer Dragster is the lap bars. I think the launches are equally great. Dragster's launch is more gradual and smooth, but Ka's launch almost seems to increase the rate of acceleration as you go down the track. Yeah, it's not as much of a fluid motion, but honestly, I think it's a more intense experience. You do feel the extra 10 miles per hour, give or take, and the bit of extra launch track, you definitely feel that. But both of these launches are breakneck insane. They both slam you to the back of your seat, and both are the highlights of the ride. They're the best two launches on any ride in the world I've been on, and probably any ride out there except for Dodonpa, obviously. And I would be shocked if any other coaster in North America will beat them, because they take my breath away every time, and I'm sure they will for you too. But that's gonna wrap up this video on the power of launches. If you made it this far in the video, then thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.